and welcome to the Amy Edwards Show. I'm your host, Amy Edwards, and we are here to keep leveling up to find those next best days that are absolutely ahead of you. And every time we show up in these spaces, it's showing the universe that we're open to more, that we're expanding, that we are into the growth mindset, which is where the action happens for sure, outside of our comfort zone. And today we are talking purpose and values and health with someone I am just so excited to welcome to the show. Amrit Sandhu. I am so excited to welcome you. Amrit is an international keynote speaker, host of the Inspired Evolution podcast, founder of Inspired Evolution, certified by Eckhart Tolle's School of Awakening, and a Mind Valley Master certified trainer for Australia and India. You are engaging and inspiring and impactful. And I am so excited because you are all about helping people live a spiritually aligned life. And I have to say, in my research of you, just looking over all your things, getting to know you online, you glow, you come across, all your pictures make me smile. I felt like it just shows. No, it really does. You come across it, you're walking the walk of what you're talking and living your purpose, right? And okay, I'm going to make a big claim here. First of all, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Amy,
Yes.
thank you so much for having me. It is such a a pleasure and a treat turned into a pleat because it was all
Hey, that's a
coming
good
out my mouth.
idea. Yeah.
It is such a pleat, such a pleasure and a treat to be here. We have this really trippy thing in my house where when we say something wrong and if it's funny, it sticks. So
Yeah.
now pleasure and treat is always going to be pleat in our
Please.
household.
Yeah.
But yeah, pardon me. Thank you so much. It is so kind the words you're offering up, and yeah, I just feel really touched and honored to be here. So thank you.
Well, I am so glad you're here because it just, when you find somebody shiny like that, like that's the magic. That's the glow. That's the shine that so many people find elusive. And I saw myself, I went through a dark period, I don't know, 6 years ago, let's say, and I didn't feel like I was aligned with my purpose. And I could see it on my face. I could see it in pictures when I wasn't smiling. And now when I look at pictures of myself, I am smiling. I am happy. I can tell that I just feel good. And it comes across. And I feel like sometimes, maybe a lot of the time, I can spot it when people feel like that or when they don't, when they're not smiling. Do you feel that? Because in every picture on your gorgeous website, you are smiling, and like I loved it. It kind of made me like smile myself, made me laugh. Do you notice that? Can you tap into that with people pretty fast from their smile, from what you're seeing, them projecting?
Touch wood. I really appreciate your kind reflection there. There's the essence of what you're speaking to in there is it revolves around a particular word, which is a word that I've sat with for a long time, which is vitality.
Oh, yeah.
And I think we can all feel that when we're around certain people. There's a certain vitality that they exude. And similar to you, I've been in places where I haven't felt that vitality, and it's been like, what I'm not feeling like, yes, my cup is full and everything overfloweth and there's a lot of passion and, so when I've contemplated the word vitality, there's so many different rabbit holes that we can go down, but I'm going to try and keep it linear and do the best that I can.
It's okay if
In
it's
that
not.
space,
It's all right.
it's
Life's not linear.
yeah.
Right. It's all right.
But one of the things hidden in the words is the word vital, right? And I believe, and this is pretty much one of the fundamental cornerstones of my work, is that we are the universe looking in on itself. And so consciousness is having this really trippy dippy experiment where it's here, folded in on itself, experiencing itself as Amrit over here and Amy over there. But yet it is just the universe at large having this experience of itself. So in there, the contemplation on vitality is we're all here for a reason. Like, why would I be looking in on myself and make two of the same exact lens to look in on myself in the same way. So we are all snowflakes, if you want to look at it that way. We are all part of the grand design. And so we all harbor a reason why we're here. And when we're not playing into that reason why we're here, I feel like we have this, I call it healthy stress. It's a type of stress that is a free life coach in your life, which is asking you to recalibrate back into your being. But also what you see is out in nature, when something is not living into its fullest potential, let's say a tree is fallen over or whatever, when you look at it, nature is trying to reclaim it, right? It provides a fungal environment for it to sort of start to decompose and break down, and provides all these other processes for whatever's there and no longer serves nature, what is no longer vital, right? For it to be reclaimed so that all that energy, all that carbon can be put to use fully in, the universe's fullest expression, for it to be used for what it was, all that cell and energy could be put towards something that is actually fulfilling the purpose of the universe in and of itself, right? And we can talk more about that later, about the overall purpose of the universe and then, our little place in the world and the purpose in there. But nonetheless, that to sort of say, when we're not living into who we were put here to live into, to be our fullest, truest expression, we start to atrophy, because we're not playing in and honoring the sacred expression that is us and our being. We start to get, the way I visualize it, reclaimed by the earth. It's like, okay, you're not doing, or you're not actually being everything you were meant to be. Let's take those carbon cells back and let's put them to use somewhere else where they will actually be lived out into their fullest expression, right? Because the universe is also brimming with vitality. You look around, it's everywhere. And so how vital are you to the universe's grand scheme and purpose of it all? And that is a massive ode to alignment, right? And alignment's one of my favorite words. We're building out a community. It's called Aligned. So in there, it's vitality is about being in alignment and making sure that you are actually honoring the sacred gift that is your life by living into it fully. Hopefully that's enough of the
It does.
I
And
can go down so many rabbit holes there.
well, it reminds me of so many times you hear the story of someone who maybe gets a diagnosis and is going to, they're told they're going to die in 6 months, and then they reignite that vitality. Or someone who lives to be 110 because they have that sense of purpose and vitalness, excuse me, in the universe. And it's just interesting how it's also symbiotic, how it keeps us alive, how it is this reflection or this dance with our health, right? And you talk about that on your website, which I wanted to ask you about. And I love this, I don't know, this alignment, of the vitality and your health and this exuding and the universe. It feels really good. There's not a question there. I don't know what it is. You just want to talk about it. What does that bring up for you?
What it brings up for me is it's actually pretty true, because in everything that we sort of preach as Amrit Sandhu online is like this life, leadership and career coaching, right? And the reason it got to life, leadership and career coaching, and I'm sort of, I don't know, picturing a Wi-Fi symbol, yeah? And there's like 3 bands, and then there's like the circle in the middle. Oh, sorry, 2 bands and the circle in the middle. And so the outer band, which is like what the world interfaces with when they come to my work, it's like life, leadership, career. But like a layer underneath that is it's purpose coaching. But what we found is the people that actually know about the word purpose are already calibrating towards purpose. And in order to get the work out to the people that, actually are in need of recalibration to purpose hasn't dropped into them, hasn't dropped into that zeitgeist. So we had to sort of put on the tin something that sounds reasonable to them, which is life, leadership and career coaching. But when they come in and it's like, oh, we're getting purpose coaching. But the trippy thing is that actually when you unpack it even further, for me, I don't really see myself as a purpose coach. Yes, I end up talking about purpose all the time, but I see myself as a health coach because of the story and the journey of my life. And similar to what you described before, when you're out of alignment to your purpose, your health is not the same as what it is when you're in alignment, right? Like even the way you wake up and pop out of bed, even the way you interact with others, even the way, you show up for conversations like this, it's drastically different, right? As you said before, it's like, you seem happy, touch wood, and it's like, yeah, well, because I'm doing things that I really enjoy and they fill up my cup and they bring in a lot of joy into my being so I can actually enjoy, oh yeah, we're going for a photo shoot for the website. It's going to be a bunch of fun. Instead of like, oh yeah, I've got a website. I've got to take some photos. How's this today? It didn't even feel like that. I remember the day we took a bunch of photos for the website, and we've done that a couple of times now. It was a bunch of fun, even for the photographer, even for ourselves. And it was like, hey, like this is really exciting. The work that we're doing, what it's going to do for the world, and all the impact that it's going to have. So that to sort of reflect upon that really interesting energy around like, yes, there's your health, and then you've got your purpose, but then also, it's called life leadership and career coaching. So for me, that's been quite a journey to understand, yeah, how best to deliver the work that I do in the world as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's so much to be said about that. But yeah, it's interesting because I, for the longest time, thought I was this weird trippy dippy character in life, and my message in my heart has always been that your health is your purpose and your purpose is your health. And that came from my hero's journey of struggling with, depression for about 6 years there, and then subsequently another dark night of the soul where I had career misalignment for 7 years. And carrying that message, health is purpose, purpose is health, was this real, yeah, it was this real existential crisis at times when I wasn't living into my purpose and even carrying that message in my heart. And then realizing that if I, almost as if I didn't have that message in my heart, I wouldn't be as challenged by being off purpose, right? But I've got this truth etched in on the inside of my heart, sort of as a compass and a calibration tool, and yet I'm living out, at times against it. And I was like, whoa, you really have to live into this. And that to say, I thought I was the only, like, it was just Amrit, like this trippy dippy individual that's actually got it as his own thing. But over time, having done this work for like 7.5 years now, one of the things I started to recognize, and this happened a few years ago, was the contemplations and the study of Dharma came in. And I'm not sure how much, the word Dharma means a lot, probably a lot to your particular audience. It does a lot to mine as well. And the whole science of Ayurveda, which is the sister science to yoga in India, is actually built. Ayurveda, which is a whole philosophy and a body of work, which is a science of health, is actually built around facilitating your dharma. Like the whole reason we have Ayurveda and understanding the doshas and the elements and all that sort of stuff is to make sure that you are enabled and capacitated to live out your dharma to the best of your ability. Because again, there's one expression of you. This is your one lifetime. Live it out, live it out to the fullest. Yeah. And how do you do that? And it's like, okay, well, if you're feeling off center, if you're feeling a bit uncalibrated, here's Ayurveda to help you support, like, tighten up your dosha, dry it up, make it more moist depending on where you're at. And then boom, like off you go and do the work that you put here to do in the world, because there's only one you. Yeah. You look at astrological birth charts, your birth chart will never be never be repeated again. Yeah. Like your constellation of being is here now. How do we maximally facilitate that? So I realized I wasn't alone. Maybe it was just in my DNA and genes or whatever, but the whole concept of your dharma being facilitated by your health, and how do you potentiate your health to facilitate your dharma? And it's that symbiosis, because if you just, so much in today's society of our dharma is, I want to say hijacked, but maybe that's too intense a word, but nonetheless hijacked by everybody else's expectations around us, from the best of intentions in some instances, like our parents want the best for us. But, society has its own intentions for what it wants you to do. And so then we get pulled off our true north. Yeah. From like, call it the right path to the wrong path. Yeah. And that's a bit intense in languaging as well, but nonetheless. And if you're on the wrong path, then your health starts to atrophy because of what we were describing before, right? When it comes to vitality, because you're not living into your dharma. So it
And
works both ways.
we neglect seeing them as intertwined and as, as together, because like in the US, I know we put things in compartments, right? Like, oh, here take care of our health and go to the gym. That's separate from my work and this,
Mm.
and family. And you compartmentalize all these things rather than understanding the whole, which is what you're talking about with those bars, right? Getting down to that wholeness and how, it's just like when your foot hurts, it probably isn't your foot. It could be your knee or the way you're standing or your hips or your back.
Mm.
It's all these things that affect one another. And it's so important to get that all all together to understand that they all affect each other. I'm thinking of how I lose grip on that a lot. And that's what's been ingrained in me,
Well,
you
I
know.
think it's also interesting because we have these schedules where we go to work and we work 8 hours of the day, and I
Mm-hmm.
clearly remember, like, for me, and I joke when I share this from stage, jestingly, but I feel like I just had my career, like, midlife crisis earlier in some ways because I worked 12 to 12, 6 days a week instead of 9 to 5, 5 days a week, right? Maybe working 9 to 5, 5 days a week would have been, not enough friction for my being to pop out on the other side into the inspired evolution. But yeah, nonetheless, I reflect on that period, and one of the things I was quickly learning through that 7 years of career misalignment was it felt really odd to be trading 12 hours of my time, day in, day out, doing something I didn't really enjoy and it didn't bring a lot of like zing and pep to my step. But then after work, going to the gym, like in the morning, drinking green smoothie, doing yoga, like meditating, doing all this thing around those 12 hours when really you sleep for 8 hours, right? So you only
Mm-hmm.
got about 4 hours to fill in something that matters to you, right? And so, but nonetheless, in those 4 hours, trying to like really integrate health into my being, and do all the things that are good for me, like socialize as well and go for a walk, spend time with my dog, spend time with my family, all those things factored in, but then spend the majority of my day doing something that doesn't really fill up my biological cells with the energy of joy, love, just the wonder of being, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that to sort of say, I think maybe there was a certain era where it was more tolerable for individuals. I don't really think so, but maybe like I look at my
Mm-hmm.
parents' generation and they were able to sort of muster up the courage to be like, you know what? I'm just going to do it for my family, and there is this frequency that drops in. Like, I'm a father now, 2.5 and 3 month old. And, when you're in that phase, like, you do look at things much more sacrificially because they are the next iteration of you. But nonetheless, I think it was much more tolerable at a certain point to be able to be like, oh, yeah, it's okay. I'm going to just put up with doing something that I completely dislike for the sake of something else, right? But now we start to realize that and I think we're more open minded now, which is to the point where it's like, if I'm doing something for 12 hours a day, which I don't like, and I've only got 4 hours a day to come home and spend it with my family, what kind of individual am I going to be? Am I going to be like a cup full gratitude, all the things that you mentioned as we set the intentions for this podcast today,
Mm-hmm.
right? Am I going to be that individual, or am I going to be like disgruntled because I'm frustrated with
Mm-hmm.
how I'm, forced by life to show up in certain ways, And then you start to realize that the edges on everything that you've dissolved, like compartmentalized in your mind. There's like work Amrit, there's like gym Amrit, there's like smoothie Amrit, there's like family Amrit, there's like sun Amrit. All this sort of Amrits are not different. They're all just one person. The edges and all that are actually dissolving, and we're just invited to be our authentic, true version of ourselves. And that's where, and I'm conscious for those people that are tuning in, this sounds like a lot of pressure if you get to a point where it's like, oh, I'm really feeling like I'm not aligned. Pardon me for that, but there's a reason that you're tuning into this conversation to some degree as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is that healthy stress, which is allowing you to sort of go, oh yeah, I need to like, it's that pressure on the carbon, and then poof, like it turns into a diamond, right? And that's the hero's journey in many ways. So if you're hearing this message and it feels like it's providing a lot of pressure, it's a healthy kind of pressure. Yeah, hoping that
Mm-hmm.
eventually the diamond and jewel of your life emerges. Um, yeah, I'll pause there and let you.
Okay, yeah, no, that's great. And what did that look like for you? I mean, sometimes I think when you're working those, like you were working quite a lot of hours and doing the
Mm,
other things. And so mean, sometimes you just get so tired that it's
Mm.
hard to muster the energy to get to find the purpose. And I mean, sometimes you're going to burn out probably, but what was the catalyst for you?
There was quite a few things that sort of tipped me over the edge, and they were all. And I think that's important to acknowledge because I feel like we oftentimes in personal development there's this concept of, oh, I'm going to go along to like a Tony Robbins seminar and I'm going to quit my job and my whole life's going to change. There's going to be this one seismic moment. But there was a few things that coalesced into, like, every day going into work, I felt like I was in the Matrix. And what do I mean by that? So there was this opportunity basically to recognize that when you watch, I think it was the first one. I'm
It
a total
was, and it's
Matrix buff, by
so
the way.
so weird. When
Mm.
you were describing this a minute ago, I
Yeah.
was just thinking about the Matrix. I was
Yeah.
imagining him in his office. Yeah.
Yeah. And so one of the things that happened was, so at some point in the movie, Morpheus takes Neo out of, like, he takes him out of the Matrix and he takes him to baseline reality. He goes, this is what reality actually is like in the machine world and the world that it is now. Now I can't remember the date. I should probably research this. It's like 2500 or 3500 or something. It's a 500 or 1000 years from now. And you remember, like, they're looking around and there's like, I think it's New York City, but nonetheless the sky is completely scorched. And Morpheus turns around to Neo and goes, believe it or not, it's the machine, it's the human beings that scorch the sky. And Neo's like, why would we do that? We rely on the sun. And then he said, yeah, Morpheus goes, yeah, because also machines rely on the sun, and human beings in their infinite wisdom assume that if we scorch the sky, there'd be no solar power energy for the machines to be able to operate and run, and that we could actually then topple the machines. And then Neo goes, and then they look across and there's these farms with these red pods where human beings are just growing in these pods. And Morpheus goes, human beings are no longer, like, we don't procreate, we're just grown in pods and farmed and harvested. And where these energy cells for the machine, because the machine's figured out, sunlight or not, human beings are a great source of energy, touch wood, right? Again, it's quite dark. But then that's where the Matrix comes in, because they're actually plugged into the Matrix thinking they're living a life when actually they're living in a pod harvested in these fields for their energy. And that, to sort of say, that was like a really dark, intense sort of like, shit, like, I really feel like I'm just living into this machine-like existence. Like, I'm a cog in this machine. Like, if something happened to me 2 weeks later, I'd be replaced by another cog and just subbed in. And what is the grand meaning? What is the purpose of all of this? Like, am I really doing something that is that impactful, that aligns with what I want to do? Now, quick pause there, because I think at this point, it makes it sound like the job that I had was terrible. It really wasn't. Yeah, it was just terrible for me. And that's really important to recognize, because if it's in alignment to your values, like, there are people that are completely made for that line of work that I was previously doing, but I wasn't. Yeah. So my values are connection, contribution, celebration. So I didn't get the opportunity to connect. I didn't get the opportunity really to contribute. Maybe some form of contribution, because we were building family homes, like high-rise towers, 40, 50 stories for, immigrant families generally living in there that move here. And so there is some sense of contribution because my family immigrated to Australia from India. But then the third one, celebration. So I was meeting like half a value. Yeah. And those are my top three values. And that's really what I value and the value that I bring to it. Now you have a look and it's like Amrit connects, contributes, and celebrates. Amrit podcasts, a lot of connection, people all over the world, a lot of contribution, a lot of celebration. Coaching, very deep connection, one-on-one. Like, everyone's like, you should do group coaching, all my mentors and stuff. And I'm like, no, I'm going to do just one-on-one, because the depths that we go to, I'm Mr. Connection, right? So connection is my highest value. Contribution is a contribution in coaching. And people celebrate life more fully for having gone through the experience, right? And the same thing with public speaking, lots of connection, lots of contribution, so now you can sort of see, like, when you're doing work like that you completely enjoy, absolutely, you show up a different way. But back off the pause for a sec, I was going through this massive misalignment for 7.5 years, and I literally felt like existentially, like, the cat was being rubbed the wrong way, right? And so feeling like I was in this cog and machine-like experience. And I think that pressure is necessary. I think we often demonize it, but as you've heard me a few times say today, like, that pressure was really helpful. there was a particular day, and this is, I'm just going to collate like a few of the things, but there are so many more, like listening to so many different audiobooks and so many different things that were sort of supportive on the journey. There was a particular day I was sitting there eating my acai bowl on the job site. And it was already kind of weird that I was eating an acai bowl. Yeah. Cause like, if you have a look, it's like construction, like all these construction workers, right? And I'm an engineer, but like nonetheless, like all these people for construction, people are eating sausage rolls, people are eating meat pies, people are eating dinner leftovers. Like what? Like which one does not fit? You know, it's like acai bowl. You know? So it's already kind of, you could say that the writing was on the wall at that point. But I'm sitting there eating my acai bowl, and I've had this moment of like divine intervention. Now is probably what I would call it, but I don't know what hit me. I googled the word courage, and it was this really trippy moment because I'm reading the definition of courage, and I was like 30, and it wasn't, I don't know, like it was just so odd that something that we use, a word that I use so commonly, I just didn't really understand. And for the longest time, up until that point, I thought courage and fearlessness were the same things. And what that meant to me was that you're either born courageous because you're born fearless and you've just got that as part of your makeup, or you're not, you know? And as I was reading the definition of courage, the aha moment, the epiphany that I was having was the fact that courage is not having fear, which is what fearlessness is. Yeah. Courage is actually absolutely having fear. Fear is a prerequisite for courage. You actually can't be courageous without courage, without there being fear. And then taking action in the name of that fear, towards that fear, to dissolve the fear. Mm-hmm. And I was like, whoa, courage is a skill. Like it was just a massive moment for me. Whoa, courage is a skill. And it's something that, I don't know, maybe it's a man in me, but like, I don't know. I just felt really connected to like this concept of like, I wanted to be courageous. I've always identified as wanting to be courageous and wanting to be fearless, but fearless is a thing out there. Maybe I watched too many Braveheart movies growing up. I love that movie. But yeah, courage is deep in here. It's a skill that I've got to work on. It's almost like as soon as that like epiphany was coalescing and precipitating, the very next part of the epiphany was like, what is your biggest fear, Amrit? And it was like, this white picket fence lane just sort of showed up, and it was literally just in my mind, and it was like, your biggest fear is like, what happens if I step outside? And I'll explain white picket fence lane for a sec, which is that story of like, hey, I'll go to school, I'll get some really good grades, then I'll go to high school. I'll go to high school, I'll get some really good grades, then I'll go to university. Then I'll go to university, I'll get a really good degree, and I'll get a really good job. Then I'll get a really good job, I'll start earning some really good money, and then I'll start a family. And then I'll find a family, I'll have a few kids, I'll get a nice car, I'll get a nice house. Now I've got a nice house, and I'll work away to sort of pay the house off, and then eventually I'll be 60, 65 when I've paid off my house, my kids have left the coop, and now finally I get to live my life for me. Yeah. And I don't know about you, but like at 35 and stuff, like already, you know, like I'm doing lots more yoga to try and keep everything lubricated and, you know, working well.
Yeah.
And then you think about like 65, like how much more reformer Pilates am I going to be doing, let alone actually gallivanting around the world, you know? And that's white picket fence lane for you. And my fear was like, what happens out here where you actually live life on your own terms? And it's like, oh, don't think about that, you know, because there is a prescription from society, this model that you should be living. And we don't know, but just stay on the track, because eventually it'll get to where you want to get to. But then I looked around at the people that had stayed on track, let's call it, and they weren't living into, and I knew enough about values at that point, that they weren't living into their values, or the values that I looked up to. And I was like, this doesn't look like they're in alignment, and they don't look very happy. And so this road leads to there, and I'm not sure this is for me. But I didn't know what to do about that. But that really also precipitated in that moment that, oh, holy cow, if I'm going to be someone that's courageous, I'm actually going to have to step out of the norm and actually leave my job at some point to feel like that courage that is really against like my biggest fear. Now, I didn't have the courage to do that in that moment, but it was like it started, a big seed was planted in that moment.
This podcast is sponsored by Wands. Wands creates luxurious pleasure practice tools that help people become more connected to their bodies. They have a huge selection of incredible items like yoni eggs, the most gorgeous crystal pleasure wands you've ever seen, free bleed blankets, and My favorites, the trademarked glass cervix wand and the Venus wand, which is their heaviest wand made of stainless steel, and their new ecstatic vibrator. This company is woman-owned and creates products designed to help you become more connected to your body and your pleasure and support the healing of pelvic pain. Get yours today in their always discreet packaging at wands.com. That's wands with 2 A's, WAANDS.com, and use my link in the show notes to get 10% off or enter the code Amy Edwards at checkout. Again, that's wands, WAANDS.com. The Amy Edwards Show is sponsored in part by Higher Dose. Higher Dose creates wellness tech for everyone with tools, supplements, and body care. And I have 15% off for you with my code MAGIC15. Higher Dose has been featured in Goop, Glamour, Elle, Vogue, Bazaar, Allure, and more. I have their infrared pulsed electromagnetic field, or PEMF mat, which emits electromagnetic waves that mimic natural frequencies found in nature, stimulating and encouraging your body's natural recovery process. It also has 20 pounds of crystals in it and has shown to ease chronic pain, aid in exercise recovery and circulation, deepen your meditations, reduce stress, and improve total body relaxation. I also love their red light face mask. It stimulates collagen, reduces fine lines, regenerates cells, and it's soft and easy to use and store and even travel with. I'm a true fan of these items and more, like their glow serum. So I'm excited to offer you 15% off using my code MAGIC15. Go to the show notes. You can click through on the link right there. Or if you go to Higher Dose, just enter the code MAGIC15 for 15% off. HigherDose.com. This podcast is sponsored by The Collective ATX. If you're looking for the best in hair extensions, it's The Collective ATX. They do mine, and I won't go anywhere else. I've tried them all over the years, and finally, I've found what makes my real hair stronger and fuller, and even works with my natural curl. They keep all their extensions in-house, so there's no wait, and they specialize in no damage to your natural hair like traditional hair extension methods. Plus, they're pros at color and covering gray. I have literally never in my life been happier with my color. They were named a top 200 salon by Salon Today in 2023. They've changed my hair journey. Let them change yours. The Collective ATX, link is in the show notes.
And the seed sort of came to germination, and I promise this is the last little bit I'll share about it because there's so many points I can share about this, but also to highlight the fact that it's not just one moment in time. I was in Costa Rica and I'd gone away and I was doing this exercise, which now I guide people through, which is, you look at 12 areas of your life and you build out a vision for each of those areas of your life. And I was, building it out. And each day I was there for like 12 days. And so I was doing an area of my life per day. And it was a great time. And then the rest of the day I was surfing, playing the handpan, having an amazing time. It's Costa Rica, eating organic.
Yeah.
It was just a beautiful time, right? But deeply working on myself. And the process started off pretty light because it was like health, emotional, character, spirituality, social, and intentionally like career and finance were left down towards the end. And I remember the day I did my career, it was like day 9, yeah? I'd been deeply working on building out a vision, and the way I work on a vision is also like, okay, what do I think I want? What is my life currently showing me? What do I currently believe that my life is showing me this? What do I need to believe to get what I want? And then ultimately, what are the skills and the habits that I need to install for the next little while and able to facilitate what I want and, destroy the limiting beliefs around what I currently believe. So it's a bit of a process. Imagine doing that against all 12 areas of your life.
I love that. Yeah, I love those questions.
And so getting through to like career, looking back, it was almost like, and also I think so many of us place so much emphasis on our career that it's like it takes this hierarchy. But when you look at your life 12 dimensionally, what happens is career is just one vial. And I could see that health was down, character was down, spirituality, like so many other things there was a pin put in like how out of 10, let's just say how full that they were. They were like 3, 4, 5. But career was at this like, finance actually was at this like 9. but career was also at a low. But I realized if I just allowed the pin on finance to come down, a lot of the other things would go up,
Mm,
and there was the trade-off was pretty easy to see, but it wasn't like comfortable as a decision to make because so much of our base root Maslow's hierarchy, root chakra stuff is based on finance that it's like, when someone's experiencing financial stress, you can say whatever you want to them, but they rarely come out of it. I've seen this in my coaching
for
because it
sure.
impacts their root chakra. It's so
Oh,
base.
I've
Yeah.
been there. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Hmm.
And so that to say, I walked out after having done the career in the finance bit and just having this like wow moment, which is like, oh, if I let this go, like if I let my career go, everything else will float up. But everything else, how do I learn to prioritize everything else as much as career and finance has previously been, like the way society grooms us, like that's your one opportunity and it's everything. And I walk out and I'm sort of like, and I sit down in the hotel and I'm just in this common area. And this guy comes up to me and he's like, "You all right, mate? You look like you've seen a ghost." And I've just sat there and I'm just like, "Oh, look, I don't know. I think I'm about to quit my job." And he goes, "Oh, that's great. I just quit my job." And I was like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm an engineer, which is what I was, and I'm on my way to China to go teach English." And I was like, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I was like, "What compelled you?" He's like, "Engineering's just not for me. Like, I can feel it every day." And we just started talking. And I was just like, if there was ever a sign from the universe,
Hmm.
like, where did this bloke materialize from? And just started chatting to me about, like, hey, like, I just did exactly what you're thinking about doing. And I'm just sort of packed it all in and I'm off on this adventure to sort of see what happens because I'm only going to live life once. And I don't even speak a lick of Chinese. I don't know why I'm going to China. It was just an opportunity popped up in my email inbox. And one day I was sitting in the office and I thought enough was enough. And here I go, I'm out. What happens if I live life that way? And I'm just trying it on for size. And I was like, dude. And so that was a real seismic moment that really like, okay, I'm trying to like, and from that point, it was like a few, like so many things like that were sort of starting to coalesce into my being to encourage me to make that decision. I know I've been talking for a long time, but all of that to sort of honor the
No,
question that
you're
you
here
asked
to
in terms
talk.
of
It's
how did
wonderful.
you how did you get to know that you were going to pull the pin
Yeah,
essentially.
yeah, that's incredible. How long ago was that?
It's been no 6 oh yeah, it's been a while now because there's a bit of an overlap for when the inspired evolution and the coaching started, so it's,
Hmm.
yeah, roughly around there. It's been more than 5 years,
And was
slightly
it
over 5 years,
was it
yeah.
linear for you once you made that decision, or did you sort of have to stretch that muscle a little bit? Did you have the moments of doubt, and how did you navigate those?
Absolutely, I had moments of doubts, and that's where the courage wisdom dropped in,
Mm,
right? Because it was like I was feeling so like, oh, this cannot be happening. And it's like, yeah, but if you're going to be courageous, just lean into fear, like learn to lean in a little bit more. And it was like, okay. And then what, interestingly, you find what was finding every time I leaned into fear, actually, it would dissolve. Like my fears are so huge in my mind,
yeah,
Jesus. But but then when
yeah,
you start to step towards them, it's like, oh, I was
yeah.
afraid of that, And even like you look at something like podcasting, it was like, who am I? What am I going to say? Like all these amazing podcasts around the world doing all these incredible things. And then you start to lean into it and it's like, oh, this is actually kind of fun. Like I was afraid of this. Like what the actual, and so many, and that's just one easy example. But there are so many fears that we have. And there's a whole story that I can go on that I love there. But it's like, yeah, the more we step into fear, um, the more we challenge it, and it's that that acronym. I'm sure many people have heard of it. It's that false evidence appearing real.
Hmm.
And that's I love that. Like, and so every time I started feeling that sort of contraction, constriction and contraction became contriction. Sorry, I'm doing a bit of that today.
It's another one. Yes. We'll add a glossary in the
Yeah.
show notes.
Thank you. How
Yeah.
to interpret Amrit. There's a masterclass in there in and of
Well,
itself.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah. You know what? I've heard that. And then have you heard fear everything and run, or face everything and rise?
Mm.
And I recently I did the same thing. Like I've done all sorts of things with fear, but recently I'm starting a new company and I had this, like, I was just like, oh my God, I'm like overcome with fear. What am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing. And someone said, write a fear list. And I thought, okay. And then I put it off for a few days. Then I went to my notes app and I was like, fine, I'll do this fear list. And literally, I wrote like 3 fears. There was nothing, there wasn't hardly anything. And it
Mm.
took away all that power that I was giving this alleged fear. And I don't think we do that enough. And I was just, I had to laugh because I thought, my gosh, I'm really not really scared of that. What I'm scared of, like what people might think. I'm really not that scared of that. Or, I'm not going to be homeless if I do this. I'm like, so it just took the air out of it, which was a great exercise.
Yeah, yeah, I can
Yeah.
imagine. Yeah, because there's so
Yes.
much energy around our fears as
So
well,
much energy.
and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and there's also like that stoic wisdom that the obstacle is the way,
Yeah.
which is like that thing that you're resisting is actually, the dragon that you need to slay in some ways. Mm.
And I think, like you said, when you planted that seed, when you had that thought, those are the times in my life that have been that's my intuition talking. That's those moments of, that's something that I probably need to play with. And it's always when I have those thoughts. Because sometimes you won't even allow yourself to go there. And then once you do, it's on kind of. It may not be right then. It might be when you travel to Costa Rica next year or something like that, right? But that's really beautiful. And I love that you talked about that pain of misalignment because I think that so many people can't quite grasp or put into words what that is, but it doesn't feel, it is pain. It is literally painful and we can numb it. Did you find yourself numbing it or, drinking whatever it was and then backing out of that or cutting some of that out once you got more aligned?
It's very interesting that you use that particular example because the year the inspired evolution was birthed, um, yeah, I'd actually given up alcohol earlier that year. So inadvertently, probably yes, there was probably a lot of suppression and something even for people to recognize. And this is me laying all the cards out on the table. Even personal development, audiobooks, podcasts. Like there's a certain amount. There's also a point where it's escapism to some degree because you're also building all these mental models in your mind of listening into entrepreneurs doing things their own way that you kind of your mind gets this dopamine hit like you've done it, but really nothing in your material world has changed. So there was
Mm.
a lot going on for me, but also to honor and acknowledge like listening to Alan Watts at certain times, like yes, it's escapism, but it also can be super therapeutic,
Mhm.
right? So there's a balance to be struck there, yeah. But only you really know what that balance is as you're going along the journey in the path. But yeah, absolutely. Alcohol is a
Wow.
really interesting one because I'd
Hmm.
given up on alcohol that year at the beginning of January when I finally decided to leave in December. And I think that was actually quite pivotal because there wasn't that escape to blow off the steam. Like I was one of those
Hmm.
individuals that wouldn't drink a lot, but when I would drink, it'd just be like, okay, we're drinking a lot tonight. Like
Yeah.
it's typical Australian kind of behavior. It's like we don't drink for months, and then when we do, it's like I'm getting drunk tonight.
It's on.
It's
Yeah, it's
like
happening.
poor liver is just like, what just happened? It's like,
Hmm.
let's talk tomorrow or the week after. Come on, once you've recovered,
Yeah.
And so that was the behavior. And anyway, so that to sort of say I'd quit alcohol. And I think there was something to be said for, yeah, just how much, even actually, one of the things I reflect on as well, that particular year, my wife had gone on a sabbatical. So she was away. And I think even our relationships can be a bit of a balm. Like we can complain to each other, let off some steam and that sort of. But I was on my own, not drinking alcohol, working on myself. And there was so much, again, the pressure didn't have any place to go, if you will,
Oof.
you know?
Yes.
And even as I reflect on that, every year we used to go to Europe for summer. And that was the one, and so we did that for like 5, 6 years. Every summer we'd have 2 summers basically. We'd have our summer in Australia, then we'd have our summer in Europe because they're midway through the year is summer in Europe, but at the beginning of the year is summer in Australia because we're in the southern hemisphere. And I didn't recognize chasing the sun I guess just how much wisdom there is in the seasons and the elements, right? Because I was double dipping on expansion, because summer is all about the sun. You think about the sun and the expansion energy that it brings. Then you think about autumn and the shedding that it invites. And then you think about winter and the ice and the consolidation that the ice does, right?
Hmm.
And then the thawing and the emerging and the budding that is spring, and then back to expansion, right? So we're living this cycle every year. That was the first year after 7 years of continuous like expansion and escaping the consolidation and the thaw. There was so much pressure when I went into winter because my wife was already overseas. I was like, well, I'm not going to go to Europe. I'm just going to hold down the fort and just stay here. That I went through a winter. And that was actually the birth time of the inspired evolution, because the pressure was so huge on my being energetically, where it was just like, whoa, like we're consolidating a lot of expansion and there's so much in here that doesn't serve you, namely around you not being able to live into your highest truth, which is I'm here to connect, contribute, and celebrate. Right. And that was the birthplace of the inspired evolution. I'm inspired by all these people. I'm going to interview them every week and evolve to live a life in alignment to my purpose, and hopefully something that looks like what they're up to in the world. Um, yeah.
How do those old patterns emerge for you now? Do you ever have things come up that maybe surprise you, or what does it look like now if you experience some of that?
All the time. And I
Yeah.
laugh, especially
Oh, good.
because
I'm glad to hear it because I do too. Okay, good.
all the time. And the reason I laugh is because having become a parent has been a very transformative journey. It's almost like, book one, book two. And having it was even like my first son, 2.5 years old now. But the way I've been articulating is like the amount of shadow work that's available to you, because basically what happened is he was not the best sleeper initially. So it took him 18 months to really learn how to sleep, which is a long time.
Yeah.
And so that meant we weren't sleeping very well. Broken sleep, 2 hour stints, 1 hour stints, maybe getting like 4 or 5 hours a night. And knowing what we know, like what I know about sleep as well. Again, that message in your heart, health is purpose and being off purpose. And it's like, I wish I
Yeah.
didn't know what I know. It's like the same thing
Mhm.
with sleep. It's like, I just wish I didn't know what I know about sleep. Why can't I just get more sleep? Anyway, recognizing that is one of the things that happens is when you're sleep deprived, and this is very 3D, but I'll explain it for a sec and I'll zoom out and get spiritual for a sec as well. So knowing what I know on the 3D about sleep and like not having sleep is one for one with your resilience, because it helps build all the flushing of the metabolism and everything gets metabolized, and you are primed to live really well and full, you're resourced in your being. But the minute you lose sleep, you start to lose sleep, your resourcedness starts to come down. And so all of a sudden you're not as resourced. And one of the things that happens is your shadows that used to live behind the gate of your resilience, because your resilience comes down, that's one of your resources, just start to flood over. So someone will say something simple, which is like, hey, have you checked the laundry? It's like, I do the laundry every day. It's like, what? Why would you say it like that? And
Mhm.
it's like, because there's so much pressure in your being, like your shadows are just jumping over the wall of your resilience has come down, and all this stuff that you had parked behind the wall of your resilience and all this personal development stuff where you were chasing the light, absolutely that's expanded the light, right? The parts of you that you wanted to grow into, but there's parts of you that you've been avoiding, and those parts haven't gone anywhere. You've just learned to build the wall higher.
Mhm.
And now that the walls come down, this stuff just was just oozing over. And it was like, whoa, okay. Because again, with the essence of the inspired evolution, there's people I'm inspired by to evolve into. But it's like, hey, check your shadows wasn't really a big part of the frequency. Because I also believe, and I still believe, shadow work is infinite. You could sit there and do your shadow work for the rest of your life and you still be working on your shadow to some degree, right? But
Mhm.
also there's all these things in your life that you're here to achieve as well, which is why I'm a coach and not a therapist, right? So let's go after that. And then sometimes you'll find I can't go after that, I'm stuck. Why? Because there's these things that are holding me back, limiting beliefs,
Mhm.
shadows and stuff. And it's like, all right, cool, let's unpin those and then continue to get back to the work, because that then can highlight. That's just my approach, right?
Mhm.
I honor that both are extremely valuable, doing the work in the light and also doing the shadow work. That to sort of say, now in this parenting portal, spiritually, when I zoom out, I recognize that it's not just the 3D of like resilience and the shadows coming up in me, like, having to deal with my angers, having to deal with my frustrations, having to deal with my sadnesses, which are in there. spiritually, it's also like my son is looking up at me and going, "Hey, Dad, can you do the work, please? Like, I don't want to inherit that stuff. I'm going to not do what you say. I'm going to do what you do. And you're living out, your shadows are impacting your patterns of behavior. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't want any of that stuff. Now's your opportunity to work through it, please, because I don't want to inherit it." And that's how I looked at it existentially. It was like, whoa, like this is, or metaphysically, it was like, okay, I'm being called to show up a different way. And my son is holding space for me to heal a whole bunch of stuff, but it's coming in this really, like, I don't want to say use the word callous, but this really challenging way of the lack of sleep and the lack of resilience. But I can really see all my stuff, all my ick, touch wood if you want to look at it that way. And so absolutely, the work continues
Oh yeah.
in that space. It's like, yeah, these are the patterns that are no longer serving. And then okay, how do I process this? Do I need to journal through it? Do I need to sit with it? Do I meditate on it? Do I take it to a therapist? Do I take it to a coach? Do I unpack it? All that sort of stuff then arrives. So absolutely, the work is infinite.
It is. It really
Touch
is.
wood.
And yeah, it's a lot about what am I showing my child? And I have two kids myself, so I can it's been a while since I was sleep deprived because of that. Now they stay up later than me and all that, but I can relate to that and there's very much like those are the real moments of life. And so
Mm.
who am I really being in those moments? Am I
Hmm.
really being the person that I'm called to be? Am I really living my truest existence, my truest being, and that's where those challenges, that's the meat of it. That's the thing that I think shows us really who we are and who we can be and
Mm.
what we're willing to do, what we're willing to really lean into about the person that like walking that walk, right? And showing it to our kids. So that's really beautiful. And I mean, they're just such good teachers. So yeah, especially
Absolutely.
toddlers. I feel for
Oh.
you. That's a whole lot of lessons.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
so
it's
really
great. It's an
beautiful.
opportunity, like you
It
said. It's
really
an
is.
opportunity.
It
Mm.
really is. And I am so grateful for all that you have shared today. We're coming up on time. So I want to turn the floor over to you. What would you like to leave people with? What would you like what's on your heart or something you even want to reiterate or just something that's coming up right now before we go?
Oh, Amy, thank you so much. I love your questions and the way you ask them as well. It's been, yeah, really
Oh, thank
enjoying this.
you. Appreciate it.
So yeah, the message in my heart is clear. It's what it was before. It's your health is your purpose, and your purpose is your health. And you might not care about purpose, or purpose might be out of sight in your mind, but health is something that is pretty front and center. We opened today's podcast with the concept around vitality. If you're not feeling vital and you're not feeling that vitality, that exuberance for life, that love for life, touch wood, something might be up, and it may be the fact that you're trading so much time and energy doing something that you don't necessarily love. And so, yeah, there's an opportunity for you to have a deeper look and kind of go, hey, what is my relationship with purpose? Because that actually is my relationship with health. And I know it's a bit extreme to say it's one for one, but that's the message in my heart, that health and purpose are actually one for one. I struggled with, the career misalignment was significantly depressing, right? And depressing sounds intense, but
Mhm.
let's unpack that for just a quick sec here now that I've got the opportunity. That depression, let's just trade that word for suppression. I was suppressing who I am. Yeah. And that suppression is the depression, which is again mental health issues, right? One for one. So
Mm.
suppress, depress, mental health. Yeah. The it becomes even clearer when you start to think about the antithesis of that, which is what is my truest expression of my purpose? So
Mm.
suppression and expression kind of working as this opening and closing, right? So then what is my truest expression of my being? Well, then that's one for one with purpose. What is my purpose? What am I put here to do? Right. And so if you find that, hey, I love expressing this or I love sharing this, and it doesn't have to be, like what I've got, which is you need to become a coach or a podcaster or a
Mm-mm.
speaker. You need to find what it is for you. And the easy way to do that is to find your values again, right? That's the truest expression of you. That's the value the world gets from you. It's what you value. It helps you become really clear on who you are in versus who someone else is. You can navigate relationships much clearer because you know what you stand for. You can navigate opportunities much better because you're like, oh, I get this all the time now, having the platform with the Inspired Evolution. There's opportunities, touch wood, and I'm so grateful for this, but flowing in all the time. and being able to go, does this actually help me connect, contribute, or celebrate? And if it's not, it's an amazing opportunity, but it's not Amrit's opportunity. Just like that career was an amazing career, but it wasn't Amrit's career, you know?
Hmm.
And so all of that to recognize like values are really important. I have put together a quick little masterclass which people can, go through 20 minutes from now. You'll be just as clear as I am on your values. 20-minute masterclass on discovering and living into your values. amrit.coach/values or inspiredevolution.com/values. So
And I
either of
have
those
it. I
places.
have the link. I'll put it in the show notes. So
Awesome.
for
Thank you.
sure,
Yes.
for sure.
Either of those
Yes,
things will take you back to
that's
that same place. But that's the expression piece, yeah? If you understand your values, now you know what the truest expression of you is. The way I say it is like the values are the pillars of the temple that is you, right? And
Mhm.
your person, like, and that allows life force energy to sort of come through the the temple that is your being, right? And now I've done so many podcasts with so many spiritual teachers, they're all saying the same thing in so many ways, which is you have this personality and you have great spirit. You can call it higher self, lower self, you can
Mhm.
call it soul and, ego, whatever you want to trade those two terms for, but there is this higher part of you and there is the being that is you. I like great spirit and personality. It's just what works for me. A lot of people resonate with soul and personality. So you've got your soul, you've got your personality, aligning that to your soul, right? Your higher purpose is tuning in like you are the universe looking in on yourself. Take a moment to understand what forms the lens that the universe is looking in to itself through you as, right? I know that's a bit to digest, but that is your values. Yeah, like I was put here to connect, contribute, celebrate, and everything I do in that space, vitality shows up, right? If this podcast was at 4 a.m. my time, which has happened before, I would still be showing up like this, touch wood, because, and I find myself in flow, words are tumbling out of my mouth. It's that existential flow. That's the name of the book we're putting,
Mhm.
like I've started writing, is called Meta Flow. It's that meta
Mm.
flow, right? There's a flow on a higher level in your life that rocks up. So, pillars of the temple, values, that is you. And that is where the aperture lines up and the most amount of light comes through, the most amount of energy comes through once you get clear. All of that to say, again, there's a 20-minute masterclass for you to go figure out your values, and then from there you can make a decision. So it just so happened that my expression, the opportunity to do a podcast, I got to go, oh, will I get to connect? Oh, actually, yes. Will I get to contribute? Oh, yeah. Will I get to celebrate? Hopefully. Oh, I'm inspired, let's do this, and that then bled into like my podcast audience. Then someone reached out and said, will you coach me? And then actually my early coaching clients got me my first speaking engagements, and they all stacked up on top of my values, and things just started to emerge and flow, right?
Mhm.
So therein lies the truest expression of yourself is in alignment to your values. Yeah, so that's that depression, suppression, mental health concerns versus the expression and allowing yourself to fully express. Quick little asterisk, some people do need SSRIs. This is not to say that everybody that's struggling with
Mhm.
depression needs to find their expression, but I think there is a large contingent of people, given the way society is built in the capitalistic structure, are being forced into living lives of quiet desperation. And for some of them, actually taking antidepressants is just masking the problem, like we were discussing before with alcohol,
Mhm.
right? But that doesn't mean that there are certain people who actually have certain chemical imbalances that do need to go get psychiatric support and get prescribed SSRIs, because that can really help getting your serotonin back. But then you don't want to be in this lifelong process, in this stance with having to take
Yeah.
serotonin to support. Yeah. Anyway, I'll stop there. Health is purpose, purpose is health. Care about your health, care about your
Yes.
purpose. Touch wood.
Beautifully said. I have so enjoyed that. And I completely agree. And I love all the reminders in there too. Thank you so much. And it has been a pleat for sure, this whole podcast. And everyone can find you at Inspired Evolution everywhere, right? You have a, a really great YouTube channel too, with a lot of
Oh, touch
amazing
wood.
guests, well-known names people will know on your podcast. So I would encourage everyone to check you out on YouTube for sure, and your website. And of course, the link to the free masterclass, which I'm very interested in doing too. I'm just so curious to see what it says. So thank you so much. I just really enjoyed this, and it was a pleasure to meet you. Thank you for taking time, Amrit.
Oh, Amy, it is such a treat. And like I said before, yeah, I love your questions. You ask very different questions and they come from the heart. And it's really nice to just be held in that heart space. And yeah, you hold space
Oh,
amazingly.
thank
So it's
you.
just been really wonderful to be here and share this time and energy with you, and really an incredible opportunity to tune into you, the audience members that are here. Like it's just, yeah, you can feel the frequency that is here, and it just
Awesome.
feels really nice and loving. So yeah,
Oh,
really
I
truly an honor
appreciate
for me. So
that.
thank you,
Thank
Amy. I love what you're
you.
creating, and yeah, absolutely a pleasure and a pleat to be here.
A plate, such a plate. So thank you so much. And thank you to everyone that tuned in today. I am so grateful that you're here every single time. Thank yourself for showing up for you, because that is where these seeds are planted. That is where the change starts happening. That is where you start transforming into your purpose, into that next best version of you, whatever that looks like. Remember to rate, review, subscribe, all the things. And thank you so much for being here. I love you so much. Till next time.
This has been the Amy Edwards Show from Overcome Studios. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe. And thank you so much for being here. Sign up for our newsletter at amyedwards.com.